One of the most common doomer comments I see online is that visual novels as a medium are dying. I've seen arguments on both sides, and honestly, I'm torn about their future myself. So in this video, I want to tackle a big question: are visual novels actually dying? To break this video down, I'm going to dive into 5 argument topics I see: the decline of big name developers, over-reliance on re-releases, the shift towards all ages only releases, genre stagnation, and fewer high-quality releases each year. For each point, I'll weigh my personal arguments for and against these. Starting off with the first big argument, the decline of big-name visual novel developers. This is probably the easiest argument to back up when talking about the visual novels are dying claim with evidence. We've seen some major developers outright shut down completely. For example, there's Giga, who made the popular Baldur series, drama-packed titles like Parfait, and fun slice-of-life moege stories like the Kiss series and Aonatsu line. Despite this great lineup, they closed by the early 2020s. Then there's Minori, a smaller studio behind decently well-liked Nakige like F, A Fairy Tale of the Two, and Eden, where the developer likely got hit hard by issues such as what they did with Supipara and Trina line, which led to their closure. Developer Overdrive's shutdown hit me personally. They created what I consider underrated gems like Kira Kira, Deardrops, Bokuten, Musicus, where the closest title they had to mainstream success was Gogo Nippon, a VN made to cater to Westerners who want to tour Japan, to the point where the sisters had a temporary VTuber stint. Type of Moon, for instance, has mostly leaned hard into Fate spin-offs across anime and games after Fate Grand Order became a cash cow for them. Alicesoft, known for the Rant series and Dona Dona, seems now mostly all in on their gacha game Choukou, Taisen, Escalation, Heroines. August, who made Ayako no Yustia and Daido Shokan no Hitsujikai, hasn't made a visual novel since their 2019 Senmono fandisk, focusing instead on their gacha game Iris Mysteria. And then there's companies like Minato-soft, the creators of Majakoi and Wagahime, Poltop, the creators of Hit My Hearted Wings and Skyfall Stars, and Nitro Plus, creators of Sayano Uda, Totono, and Muramasa, who have not released anything, not even re-releases, in years. There is a counter-argument to this point though. Some big-name developers are still going strong. Purplesoft keeps consistently releasing liked enough titles. Key, the Nakige developer, is still making full-length visual novels like Anomoi and smaller ones like Lunaria and Loopers, even with their gacha game Heaven Birds Red as their revenue maker. Skaji has given us Sakura no Toki, the sequel to Sakura no Uta, and Suinosora Remake, a pseudo-sequel to Subahebi in the 2020s, and Favorite behind Hoshizora no Memoria and Irotoridori no Sekai drops new titles every year or two. Basically, while there's no doubt once big name companies are either ignoring VNs or just dying outright, there's still enough other big names out there releasing stuff. Going into the next big argument, the visual novel industry's supposed reliance on re-releases like remasters, remakes, or repackaged versions with minor tweaks. To be fair, this trend isn't unique to visual novels. You see it all the time with live-action films and series, video games, and anime as well. With visual novels, we've had remakes like Dokyusei 1, Yuno, White Album 1, Urawareru Mono 1, and Giga's Parfait with mixed fan reactions. HD remasters often aimed at English markets include Kiza's Little Busters in Air, Karo Shoujo 1 with full voice acting, and more recently, Cartagra's full HD remaster, Never 7, Ever 17, Fate Stay Night, and Koi Chako. Then we have the occasional definitive editions like Hoshiori Yume Mirai, which blend console and 18+ content, or Mashiro Iro Symphony, which added new content for the previously console-only Sana route, including 18+ scenes with Palace's modern art style. On the flip side though, there are some occasional lazy efforts, like with Sprites' Alcana Ultimate editions, which only toss in a few new scenes and higher resolutions. Now, admittedly, the re-releases argument isn't the most common critique, but I see enough people say re-releases are potentially overshadowing or taking away from more exciting new visual novel IPs. This might be more of a Japan-specific issue where the number of original releases are slowly decreasing by the year. For Western fans though, I'd say remakes and remasters often bring previously untranslated titles into, well, getting an excuse to have them get an English translation, aka an obvious plus. I'd say these projects don't necessarily stop new visual novels from being made. That said, when we do have cases like Sprite announcing titles like Ajasen-chan and Alcana If 1, then silently scrapping them for Alcana re-releases, companies like those, while rare in the VN industry, show how VN companies should not aim to become like the AAA game developer style cash grabbers. I'd say companies like Key do a better job striking a balance, delivering high resolution re-releases alongside new titles consistently. The next argument I'll be talking about is the general modern market shift towards more all-ages visual novel releases, even in Japan, where developers are increasingly leaving out 18+ content. Some fans may blame Western censorship, pointing to Steam's policies on anime-style characters or payment processor restrictions, which to be fair is a very frustrating problem, but I'd say this trend actually started earlier than that. Japanese developer Pulltop with MoeNovel under the same corporate umbrella released all-ages versions of visual novels like If My Heart Had Wings and A Sky Full of Stars for the West back in the early mid-2010s, showing how even they had the idea of wanting to reach out to a wider audience. To this day, still not releasing official 18+ patches, relying on fans to do restoration patches. That's not even including all-ages console-exclusive content in Japan, like how Akari's route was originally stuck on If My Heart Had Wings cruise sign, Nonchan Senpai route from Koichako is still stuck to a PSP port, and the popular-ish Ageha Kuki from Majikoi actually has a route in a PSP port of the VN she originated from, Kimiaru or They Are My Noble Masters. Keep in mind, all of these releases were in the early mid-2010s, long before the online censorship controversies. Big companies like Type Moon and Key have ditched Aerogate early on, while Frontwing in recent times seeming to also be fine going full all ages, becoming some of the few companies to successfully go full all ages when they started as Aerogate. And then there's popular visual novel writers like Kotaro Uchikoshi and Ryukishi07 who have never written a big Aerogate title and are still very successful. That said, Minori, a company that I mentioned earlier, had a very notable controversial flop with Supipara in 2012 due to attempting to go full all ages, contributing to its slow decline and eventual 2019 closure after titles like Trino Line did not do very well, despite adding back in 18+ content from the start. Giga, another company I mentioned earlier, has history showing a growing sense of past shame towards its Aerogate roots. They reportedly blocked an official 18+ patch for Baldur's Gate English release on Steam, with an unofficial patch by the fan group Shadow Wolf, rumored to be insiders from Giga's Sekai project, having to be the ones to give Western readers the option to read the original 18+ version. Giga's untranslated Parfait remake also dropped 18+ content, as did recent remakes like Novamix's remake of Tactus's 1. and Aquaplus's 3D remake of Leafs' Toheart 1 from 1997, the latter based on Aquaplus's already all-ages pseudo-remake all the way back in 1999. Laplacian also had Cyanotype Daydream, despite the developer's Aerogate background, launched an all-ages version of Cyanotype with new story scenes but no 18+ patch officially, which felt like arrogance on the writer and company's part attempting to go full all-ages storytelling. After some understandable controversies, Laplacian has mostly gone quiet, with its writer now focusing on light novels. That said, as a whole, I do not think the increasing move away from 18+ content is killing visual novels. I would say it's more like the medium's Aerogate roots have split into two camps, those aiming to keep and cater to explicit 18+ content releases and those drawn to story-driven all-ages narratives. That said, there will always be Nuki-gay titles made to cater to specific sexual fetishes for Aerogate fans and people who actually want all-ages versions of Aerogate VNs available. Companies like Giga, Minori, or Laplacian may have struggled to transition to all-ages like they wanted, likely due to overestimating their brand, but Type Moon, Key, Frontwing, and creators like Uchikoshi and Ryukishi07 show that all-ages visual novels can succeed with strong storytelling. Aerogate might be a safer bet for quick profits, especially from dedicated Gunner whales in Japan, but all-ages titles, while riskier, can shine with compelling narratives leading to strong sales. The next major argument I'm going to talk about is genre stagnation in visual novels. This one is pretty subjective, but some fans argue that certain genres, especially romance-heavy ones, have been stuck in a rut. Back in the 2000s and early 2010s, even lighthearted romance visual novels or moe had some unique depth. Mashiro Iro Symphony by Palette nailed slow burn character development and heavy romantic melodrama, while Majikoi mixed goofy comedy with heartfelt themes of friendship and serious takes on talent and obsession. Classics like Toheart, Dokusei, and Tokimeki Memorial were generally noted as the prime innovators of the romance genre really early on for visual novels, but the romance genre hasn't seen true creativity in VNs for ages. Yuzusoft, despite being very popular due to its excellent presentation and very memorable waifus, is a prime example of one might consider moe stagnation. Their earlier works like EXE dove into Nakige with life and death drama and urban fantasy, and Sanobo Witch won praise for its emotionally gripping Nakige-like routes. But their newer titles after that lean into more predictable, slower-paced rom-coms with minimal drama, using supernatural settings just to spice up romance flavors. While some fans enjoy and even seek out these low-stakes stories, their formulaic vibe, where one title could feel like the next, has likely helped to give moe a mid reputation. Some people even say, you read one Ubisoft title, you read them all. Other moe developers play it safe too. MoeNovel's closest thing to innovation is tweaking their main art style in the recent release, Select Oblige. Alcot has stuck to outdated pervert protagonist humor and is reportedly going to close after releasing their final title, Clover Memories, on their 20th anniversary, no less. Asa Project leans hard into its over-the-top bakage comedy, for better or for worse. SME, once known for their quirky humor, has toned it down a lot, with their latest title, Love Pickle Poppy, also switching to a new art style. SME's parent company, Hooksoft, is also known for generally playing things really safe. It says something when Hokago Cinderella's innovation was just a gimmick where the protagonist and heroine make choices while walking home together, but apparently this was considered innovative enough to make a direct numbered sequel. Toneworks' grounded, slow-paced approach in titles like Hoshiori Yuma Mirai, Geniro Haruka, and Tsukikana alongside Azarashi-Soft's Amakano and Amanatsu are considered innovative, especially with Toneworks' usage of time skips, with that and some of the other titles as some of the highest-rated pure slice-of-life romance visual novels out there. While it's nice that there are people who love slice-of-life visual novels like this that emphasize groundedness and spending as much time with a love interest as possible, I know many others, myself included, who do not want to see super slow-paced visual novels as the innovation for slice-of-life romance. In general, slice-of-life visual novels rarely break new ground. Titles like Yubisaki Connection, Making Lovers, and Chihiro Himikai occasionally explore adult age romance, but don't really push boundaries around them. Standout, released in the 2020s in Japan, is Sosaku Kanojo no Renai Koshiki by Inolinks, a slice-of-life drama about creators, visual novel developers, writers, actors facing related struggles. Even that got slightly mixed reviews, with its heroine routes falling short of the common route's promise, a clear sign of the surprising struggles in this slice-of-life genre. I'm only going to briefly talk about Western visual novels, once called OELVNs, now often EVNs. They face similar stagnation critiques. Among Japanese visual novel fans, only Karawa Shoujo and Doki Doki Literature Club stand out to them, mostly for either being Westerners' first visual novel ever. Beyond those two though, EVNs are often brushed off from Japanese VN fans as either leaning too hard into parodies like the Colonel Sanders KFC dating sim, Pal World's dating sim, or the infamous Sex with Hitler, or that apparently EVNs mimic Japanese harem tropes often without fresh ideas. For example, including Pixel Phase's Ace Academy and Crystalline, which are basically Western-made moege, or Studio Elon's Yuri-focused Heart of the Woods and Highway Blossoms. That said, there are EVNs that are inspired by mystery ones, like Sekimeya Spun Glass was clearly inspired by Ever 17 and seems to be decently respected, though sadly there is also the very infamous Inescapable No Rules, No Rescue, which was clearly inspired by Danganronpa and maybe Zero Escape, but instead of using the murder mystery aspect, attempted to focus on psychological character arcs over Danganronpa-style gameplay. But this game got hated for its bait premise, disappointing execution, and most importantly, its ridiculous $50 price tag, usually saved for high-quality, long visual novels. Finding unique EVNs on Steam is tricky due to messy tags, but platforms like itch.io seems to be purely made to highlight Western developers with original premises that dodge anime tropes or parodies. Admittedly, I don't have too much experience with EVNs personally, so it's hard for me to argue definitively about their innovation or lack of. I'm just quickly bringing up the titles I'm personally aware of. Wrapping up with the final and probably most contentious argument, the decline of high-quality, plot, or drama-heavy visual novels often called Kamige online. Japanese visual novel fans see the late 2000s and the early 2010s as the golden age of VNs, with heavyweights like Baldur's Sky, Jisenju no Mao, Furikasaya, Little Busters, Rewrite, Steins Gate, Umineko, Full Metal Demon, Muramasa, Kara no Shoujo 1, and Wonderful Everyday releasing around this time. These titles, highly rated on both VNDB and Arrow Gamescape, set a standard that few modern releases match. These days, the studios behind these Kamige are struggling. Giga's post-Baldur titles don't hold a candle to the sky, and now Giga's dead. Alchemysoft's 2 writer Loose Boy fizzled out after weak releases made after Jisenjo. Key stories, especially ones written by Jun Maeda, haven't been consistent since Little Busters. The Science Adventure series after Steins Gate has been incredibly hit or miss, with mages now straight up resorting to a Steins Gate reboot, some thinking it'll be a cash grab. Nitro Plus hasn't dropped a notable edgy story title in Japan since Totono, and now their latest release with Urobuchi is just some 2.5D platformer starring a rabbit with the same voice actor as Kiryu from Yakuza. Innocent Grace's Kara no Shoujo trilogy finale took nearly a decade to come out, and Yuri-focused spin-offs like Flowers, also by Innocent Gray, while loved in a niche that likes Yuri, but clearly does not universally appeal to its KNS fans. But here's my counter-argument. The decline of Kamige from the just-mentioned certain studios doesn't tell the whole story of the medium and other developers. Purplesoft has delivered well-received titles like Amatsutsumi, Aoi Tori, Kunado Chronicles, and Criminal Border, all within the last decade, blending supernatural elements, grounded settings, and emotionally resonant stories with darker tones. The writer behind Criminal Border also worked on Palace's popular 9-9 series, a mix of magic, shonen, rom-com, and unpredictable drama. Key, despite leaning on their gacha game Heaven Burns Red, still produces solid titles like Lunaria, Loopers, Summer Pockets, and its enhanced Reflection Blue, with Anamoy coming soon. Skaji's Sakura no Uto and its 2020 sequel Sakura no Toki, plus the praised Suno Sora remake, keeps things fresh from him. Newcomer Kurupo shook things up with Nukatashi, a comedic shonen-style story about a dystopian island where public sex is enforced, with their most recent modern hit, Hentai Prison, being a quirky prison drama starring mostly sex offenders with a story inspired by The Shawshank Redemption. Recent years have also brought us Unravel triggered by Archive, Alcana's beloved Extra 1 and especially Extra 2 fan discs, favorites is Sakura Moyu, steady Otome releases especially from Otomate, alongside boys love titles like Adelta's Oe and Hasahime, both which have surprisingly high ratings. Gameplay-heavy visual novels have been thriving too, mainly with Kodaka and Uchikoshi delivering mystery thrillers like the Somnium Files Trilogy, World's End Club, Master Detective Archives Raincode, and their joint project, the 100-line Last Defense Academy. But here's a rebuttal to the just-mentioned counter-argument. Are these modern titles as iconic as the 2000s Kamige? Honestly, probably not. Few capture both casual and hardcore fans like the classics did. Recent releases often leads towards safe, shorter, all-ages titles like Achi My Dear Moments, Ginka, mystery visual novels like Kamisubaki City Regenerate and the Spirit Hunter series, or upcoming sequels like the 9-9 spin-offs and Inupara. Does it help that we also have a bunch of cancelled projects like Alcana If 1, which was supposed to be used as a way to spotlight side heroines, which points to a cautious industry. That said, do visual novels need to be Kamige to matter anyway? Ratings on Arrow Gamescape and VNDB are useful, but do not necessarily reflect sales or universal appeal. For example, Subarashiki Hebi or Subahebi is an online fan favorite, but I know many people who dislike it or never even consider touching it. Meanwhile, Nekopara tends to be the epitome of slop by people who want visual novels with real story and drama, but the Nekopara series is still one of the most well-known, popular, and best-selling visual novels ever, despite just being a lower-rated, short, shallow, cat-girl moe gooner series on VNDB and Arrow Gamescape. Now that I've covered my main 5 points backed by evidence, let's touch on a few smaller ideas that I don't have solid proof for, but feel like worth mentioning briefly. First, we have the rise of short-form, dopamine-driven media like YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and meme culture in general, which seems to clash with the slow, deliberate pacing of visual novels, which require patience and imagination. This trend can make it harder for visual novels to attract newer fans, potentially leading to lower sales and less interest in the medium. That said, I know plenty of Gen Z fans who love visual novels just as much as their quick hit entertainment, so there is a dedicated crowd out there. One point I did not bring up in previous company closure related arguments is the impact of COVID-19, especially in its prime years of 2020 and 2021. There is a chance that might have contributed to some companies heavily slowing down on releases or low-key stopping, but I don't have the definitive proof. I've also heard claims that visual novel sales in Japan have just been declining overall even before COVID-19. Unfortunately, I also cannot confirm this since I don't have access to reliable Japanese sources. If anyone in the comments section can point one to me, that'd be awesome. The only hint I've seen is lower vote totals across the board for popular visual novels on Arrow Gamescape, but that's shaky evidence at best. Plus, I suspect Japanese fans on Arrow Gamescape don't represent who actually buys visual novels, and I would not be surprised if a good amount of them pirate visual novels in the same way basically over 80+% of English VNDB users pirate most of their visual novels. There's a growing concern in the gaming industry that AI will take over, with the possibility that it could take over visual novels. In the Western scene, we're already seeing some fully AI-generated art for visual novels, with ones I found like Sweet Science on itch.io and Macau Midnight Madness on Steam. These titles aren't exactly topping the sales charts, but the average person, or even a business executive, might not notice or care about the difference between AI-generated art and hand-drawn work, which is likely why we'll see more AI usage in general in AAA gaming sooner than later. That said, many fans, especially those in the anime style of visual novel community, are very vocally against AI-generated art. For now, I don't see major visual novel developers, particularly established Japanese companies, jumping on the AI bandwagon for their big brands. If they did, they'd likely face significant backlash. However, I could see Western indie developers experimenting more with AI, especially solo creators looking to make a visual novel all on their own. But the indie EVN developer scene might go hard with criticism of AI use. AI is still in its early stages, so it's too soon to predict its full impact on visual novels. Still, it's worth noting that smaller indie titles could feel the effects of AI much faster. finally, there's the debate about Western localizations impacting the Japanese visual novel market. On the positive side, Steam's global reach shows which titles publicly perform well, like Krupo's Nukatashi and Hentai Prison, or certain classics like Steins Gate and Clannad. Sprite, the developers of Alcana, even revived thanks to Nekonyan's older Kickstarter, releasing the previously shelved Extra 2 fan disc. But there are downsides. According to some translation localizer teams, some Japanese developers charge high fees to use their brands, others outright refuse to allow translations due to low perceived value, and many Western releases are still heavily pirated. Kickstarters like Ashar no Kuni have faced many issues like not releasing, and companies like Giga, Laplacian, or Sumikosoft with the release of Harukudu 17 Plus version often show little interest in definitive 18 Plus English editions. But ultimately, I didn't go as deep in this last point in my main list because localization companies basically never share their sales figures. We don't know how well their titles sell or how well the English market actually influences Japanese developers, as PR discussions between them stay private as you'd expect. The closest we get are top 10 seller lists on Manga Gamer and Jazz stores, but let's be real, these top seller lists likely aren't even close to the middle of the road VN sales on Steam, which is constantly noted to be by far the most popular place to buy visual novels legally in the West. After weighing all the arguments, what's my take on whether the visual novel medium is dying or not? This is a tough question I've wrestled with for years. As of 2025, I lean towards a reluctant yes. The medium is dying, but it's not on its last breath. To use a grim analogy, it's like the medium is in the early stages of cancer, somewhere between stages 1 and 2, showing clear signs of decline, but still at a point where a strong intervention could potentially turn things around. Fewer standout titles, stagnation in some genres, likely lower sales across the board, consumers requiring quicker dopamine rushes, and companies shifting to gacha games or shutting down altogether all point to a medium going through a painfully slow death. Even as someone who's followed visual novels for over 15 years, I've seen supposed big fans of the medium move on to other mediums or just get caught up in real life. Newer fans may discover visual novels through platforms like Steam, but a theoretical influx likely isn't enough to reverse the trend. While the decline is gradual, consistent breakout hits on the level of Doki Doki Literature Club could theoretically breathe new life into the industry, but honestly though, that feels extremely unlikely and the downward trend will probably continue, or very best case scenario, VNs will just stay a very specific niche medium long term. Still, as I've said in a previous video, visual novels still remain my favorite entertainment medium in my nearly 40 years of living, due to the medium's storytelling styles personally appealing to my sensibilities long term, and at least for my tastes, there's still plenty of interesting visual novels released on a consistent enough basis for me to stick around and a whole backlog of me to get through eventually. I'll keep reading visual novels until the end, whether the medium fades first or my body physically gives out.